Now I am coming to the components of the circuits. Okay. So pump, tubings, connectors, and membrane lung. These are the different pumps. Pumps, basically it acts like an artificial heart. There are two types of pump. You have a centrifugal pump and you have the roller pump. These are the basic two types of pumps mainly what we use. Okay. And an impeller pump, but then we don't use impeller pump so commonly. Okay. Now roller pump is the one which you use in the OT. Also roller pump. Yeah, I'll show you the roller pump. Okay. Now that is basically a positive pump. It is a positive pressure pump. Okay, and it causes a positive pump displacement of the blood. Okay, by squeezing the tube. So it will squeeze the tube and make the blood move forward. Okay. The problem with this pump is it is not based on your preload and afterload. So it is independent of preload and afterload. Okay. So when patient is hypovolemic, your pump moves, it will suck the intima and that will create a problem. If your the return line gets kinked or blocked, it will keep on moving the same speed and it will create lot of positive pressure and your tube get ruptured. Okay. So these are the disadvantage of a roller pump. All those who have been to a cardiovascular surgery department, then they must have seen this been used as a routinely for all cardiac surgeries. Okay. So that's about the roller pump. Yeah, we are just getting roller pump. नीचे ले ले चलेगा, ऊपर लेंगे जरूरत नहीं अशोक. सूरज इसको दिखा पाएगा कि ऊपर से? हाँ, ये इसको थोड़ा उल्टा करेगा, बाद में चालू कर, पहले इसको उल्टा कर, पहले बाद में चालू करते हैं. थोड़ा टिल्ट कर देना, ये तरफ मुँह करना. हाँ, ये दिखना है ना, सिर्फ दिखाना ये मेरे को. Okay. So this is a roller pump, and you have to feed this tube, and this tube you have to adjust this knob so that it does not too tight, at the same time it is not too loose. If it is too loose, this roller pump will move, but the squeezing of tube does not take place. If it is too tight, it will squeeze the tube too much, and then it will cause some plastic release also. So you have to be mindful about it. Okay. So this is the way the pump moves and it displaces the water. Okay. See, can you see this? And if you suppose the return line gets blocked somewhere, it will create lot of positive pressure and it will rupture this tube. So this is the roller pump. ECMO and everything started basically with a roller pump first, and then we moved on to centrifugal pump. Okay. Fine. So advantages and disadvantages of roller pump. Okay. And this is what happens if you clamp the return line of roller pump. You have blood all over your ICU or OT and everywhere. Okay. Now we came to centrifugal pump. Again, centrifugal pump, basically as I told you, it's not a positive pressure pump. It creates a vortex. It creates a vacuum. It creates a vortex, and thereby it sucks the blood and then it pushes the blood forward. Okay. There are first and second generation centrifugal pump, but they are not up to the mark. Medtronic and the Sorin pump, we are first, second generation pump. So the risk, Medtronic the first generation pump, so the risk of hemolysis was more. But now third generation centrifugal pump, they are a much better pump. Okay. Now I'll show you the pumps, different pumps. Okay. Medtronic. Yeah. See, this is the Medtronic pump. You can see the size of this pump. This is the Medtronic pump. You can see the design. And this pump will fit only on this machine. Okay. It will fit only on this. This is the Medtronic pump. Okay. Now, similarly, this Sorin pump. This is the Sorin pump. Again, the design is different. The size is different. Okay. You have a Centrimec pump. This is the size of the Centrimec pump. Each pump, when they fits, there is a locking mechanism. Always remember, each pump, when it fits here, it has got locking mechanism. Why you not necessary for you to know this? Because when you suppose the pump stops suddenly, you want to take the pump out, you should know how to unlock it. So whichever machine you have, you should know how to unlock the pump. If you try to pull it out, it will break. So you have to see, you have to unlock it like this. Then only able to take it out. So this is important. Okay, you have to unlock the pump. In each and every machine has got some kind of locking mechanisms. This is the Mackay pump. Okay. Here they have a ridge here, so you can put it in this way. And this is the Meadows pump. Can you see the Meadows pump? The size of the Meadows pump. The priming volume for this Meadows pump is only 10 to 12 ml. While the priming volume for this is around 80 ml. So you can see the different size of the pumps, different pumps. And that's why, as I told you, with the as the pump size decreases, the RPM goes, RPM requirement will be more. Okay, to move the blood, because the pump size is very small. So here, in case of Medtronic, with 2 liters you might get the flow of around 4 liters. But here, because the pump size is so small, with the 2 liters of 2000 of RPM, the flow will not be even 500 ml. So the flow will, each machine with the RPM, the flow will differ. So that you have to keep in mind. Medtronic, Sorin, more or less that is the same RPM. Mackay and Centrimec, more or less the size of the pump is, there's not big difference. But Meadows is the smallest size pump, and that's why the requirement of RPM is very high in case of Meadows. Now, why I am emphasizing on this? Suppose I get a call from someone or distant, some other part of India. They call me and say that okay, our RPM, my RPM is 7000 and flow is 3 liters. I have to first ask him which machine you are using. Okay, it has to be Meadows, because that's the only possibility with the Meadows machine. With the 7000 RPM, you get the flow of only 3000 or 3 liters or 3.5 liters. That is not possible in any other machine. So you have to know that whenever you are talking about RPM flow ratio, you should know which machine you are using. Okay, fine. So as I told you, the pump, centrifugal pump depends on preload, afterload, size of the pump head. This is the size of the pump head, and depends on the pump speed. Okay, so these are the 4 factors on which the flow RPM ratio depends. Okay. The advantage is basically it creates less positive pressure, so you don't have any chance of tube rupture in case of centrifugal machines. Okay, only if the pressure goes above 400, the circuit pressure goes above 400, then only there is a chance of tube rupture. Otherwise, there is no chance of tube rupture in case of centrifugal pump. Okay, it's a vortex pump. It traps the air. Okay, so again, the whatever, suppose there's some air goes inside, it gets trapped in the centrifugal machine. Okay, so it gets trapped here at the tip of the centrifugal machine. Okay, then it has less friction. Okay, and the risk of hemolysis is less. The disadvantage is the flow is not constant because it depends on the preload and afterload, and it can create cavitations. So what will happen is, suppose your preload is decreased. Okay, the pump is moving, so it will create more and more vacuum. And it will create because there's a lot of vacuum and suction effect, there's a cavitation in the fluid, there's the air which is released in the fluid, okay, in the blood itself. and you have a air coming in the circuit. That is what we call as a cavitation, and that usually occurs when your negative pressure goes more than 200. Okay. So if the negative pressure is more than 200 or 250, you will see the cavitation and you will see the air in the circuit. Okay. So these are the different types of centrifugal machine, as I already shown this to you. Okay. And these are the different characteristics of each and every. I think we are going to give you PDF of this, so you can go to the details of this. Okay. The problem with pump is it can give rise to a hemolysis. Okay. And there is a comparative study of different pumps which has been done. As I told you, the most of the hemolysis is seen with the Medtronic pump. Okay. And the least is seen with the Centrimac pump. So Centrimac pump, the hemolysis is least as compared to the Medtronic pump. Okay. Mackay, Meadows and Sorin, the hemolysis level is more or less same, but they are all acceptable levels. Okay. So there is always hemolysis that occurs. With Centrimac, it is minimum. Why it is minimum with the Centrimac is because all this pump, if you see, centrifugal pump, they are bearing pumps. Medtronic being a first generation, it has got 3 bearings. Okay. While Meadows and Mackay and your Sorin, they got 1 bearing. Okay. But Centrimac pump, there is no bearing. If you see this Centrimac pump, when you go to the station, you see it is basically based on levitation technology. So if you see the rotating cup is hanging. If you see here, it is hanging. It is not touched anywhere. There is no connection. So it is just hanging. And it is basically based on levitation. So whenever the magnet moves, this pump goes up and then it moves. So there is no direct connection. But that's the reason the hemolysis is very less. In other, everywhere there is you can see bearings. You can see 1 bearing here. So there is always a bearing which makes it move. This is not fallen. This is not. It is connected with 1 bearing. Here it is not connected. So that basically based on levitation technology, and that's the reason you don't see hemolysis much in case of centrifugal pump. Okay. How will you see the pump dysfunctioning? You can see the clots in the pump. Okay. You can auscultate the pump. That is important. So where you auscultate the person, you have to auscultate the pump. Usually you get the spinning sound, but when there's a crackles, you will see, when there's a clot, you might see the crackling sounds. Okay. If you have to look at the RPM and flow ratio, with the same RPM the flow decreases, look at the circuit pressures. If all the circuit pressures are down, with the same RPM the flow is decreased, that means it goes in favor of something wrong with the pump. Okay. You might see this evidence of hemolysis, so dark color urine, your plasma hemoglobin level go up and you get urine hemoglobin urea. So these are all the way you can monitor the pump functions. Okay. Then coming to the oxygenators, there are different types of oxygenator. One is pseudomembranous, membrane oxygenator, bubble and disc. Bubble and disc oxygenator are the past story, so nobody is using it. So, even membrane oxygenator has become the past story. You will not able to silicon लाया क्या यहाँ पे silicon oxygenator. You will not able to see that oxygenator. These are all past history basically. You वो देख वहाँ पे होगा उसमें जोमन silicon oxygenator. Okay. So this is the first oxygenator. Silicon is the first oxygenator which was been approved for FDA for ECMO. Okay. Can you see the size of the oxygenator? Okay. And this oxygenator can give you support of around 2.5 to 3 liters only. Okay. So you have for an adult person, you have still a bigger oxygenator. This is based on silicon membrane. The advantage of this oxygenator was this was only one, as I told you in the past, was approved for long 28 days use for ECMO. Okay. But you know the size, the priming volume is more, the resistance is going to be more, and the hemolysis risk is going to be more. Then you have a hollow fiber oxygenator which you use usually in case of bypass surgery. That is known as polypropylene oxygenator. Okay, that is a hollow fiber, so there are pores are there. The problem with this oxygenator is after 4 to 6 hours it develops plasma leak. After some time it develops plasma leak. Okay, so that cannot be used for an ECMO, because ECMO you require longer. Then you have another types of hollow fiber, but the membrane is different. What we use, the PMP membrane, polymethyl pentene membrane. Okay, these are different polymethyl pentene membrane oxygenator, and that is microporous, so the chance of plasma leak is negligible. Okay, so that is what is now been standard, gold standard. What we practice is we use all PMP oxygenator. This is what happens when you see a polypropylene oxygenator. You can start, can you see this? You can start seeing the plasma leak from the oxygenator, and that occurs after 4 to 6 hours of using it. So that is polypropylene oxygenator. So the gold standard is now PMP oxygenator. There are different types of PMP oxygenator available now. See, oxygenator, if you see, it is an independent body. It is connected to the circuit with the help of only tubes. So you can use any oxygenator with any of the circuit. It is not type specific. So in Mackay machine I can use Cordrox oxygenator, I can use Sorin oxygenator, I can use Meadows oxygenator, I can use any oxygenator. Euroset oxygenator, I can use any oxygenator because it is not attached to the machine, it is attached with the help of tube only. So I can use any of the oxygenator with any of the machines. Now this is the Mackay one. Okay. Again there is a difference in this size. This is Meadows oxygenator, this is Mackay oxygenator. Size and shape varies. Okay. This is Paragon oxygenator. Okay. This is Euroset oxygenator. Okay. And this is the neonate oxygenator. The size is small. Okay. Now what is important in oxygenator? I'll show you. One is blood in. Here it is written blood in. So the blood will come from here. Okay. Similarly, there is a blood out. So blood will go out from here. So there is a blood in, there is blood out. Okay, that is one thing. Then these are the two for heat exchanger. So this heater unit get connected here. See, there are 3 compartments in this. In oxygen there are 3 compartments. One is the blood compartment. So blood is moving from here. It is going out from here. This is a blood compartment. Okay. And these are airtight compartments. So nothing can mix in it. There is another compartment which is running outside in the periphery is the water compartment. So that runs in the periphery. So water will come from one end. It gets attached here. It gets attached here. So water will go from here. It moves inside and comes out. Okay. So warm water is moving around the blood. So it warms up the blood. So whatever the blood cooling is occurred, it gets warmed up. Okay. That is. Third is your oxygen line, gas line. From here, the blood goes down. Okay. These are there are fibers here. So each fibers, they are very minute fibers, around 180 micron fibers. Okay. That is the internal diameter. So from that, the oxygen or gas flows through that fibers. Okay. Once the blood is moving from here to here, it is flowing across the fibers. Okay. So blood is flowing in this direction. It is flowing across the fibers. Oxygen is flowing through the fibers. So what will happen? There will be a gas exchange takes place. Okay. And then this is surrounded by a warm water, so it will warm the blood. Okay. So these are the, and now you can see this knob is for de-airing. Okay. This knob is for de-airing. This knob is for de-airing when you want to de-air this. Okay. So these are different 6 outlet of the oxygenator. Here you can put a temperature probe. Okay. Here you can put a temperature probe to measure the temperature of the circuit or the blood in the circuit. Okay. So these are the different parts of the oxygenator. Is this clear? Fine. Okay. Now each oxygenator, what is important is the rated capacity of each oxygenator. Now what is rated capacity? It means each oxygenator can have a maximum capacity of oxygenating the blood. So some oxygenator has got capacity of oxygenating 5 liters of blood, some has got 7 liters of blood, some has got 2 liters of blood, some has got 800 ml of blood. So you should know the rated oxygenating capacity of each oxygenator. Okay. Why this is important? Because if you go above that flow, you won't able to help in oxygenation, but at the same time will create more resistance. Okay, so it will lead to hemolysis. Okay. So you have to use oxygenator. So for an example, as I shown you, a pediatric oxygenator. Okay. Suppose you want to support neonates, you require such a small oxygenator. You don't require big oxygenator, and it can support you for 800 ml. This can be used even for ECOR, because in ECOR we are not going to go above more than 500 to 800 ml of flow. So this is good enough for that. But if you want 1.2 liters of flow, you can't use this. Then you have to put one more oxygenator. Most of the PMP oxygenator has got a rated capacity of 7 liters to 8 liters except Sorin. Sorin oxygenator has got rated capacity of 5 liters only. So if you require to go more on the flow, suppose you require 6 liters of flow and the oxygenator is Sorin, you have to put one more oxygenator, additional oxygenator. So there will be 2 oxygenator. And how will you put these 2 oxygenator? In parallel to each other, not in series. In series, you won't have any benefits. It has to be parallel. So you have to put a Y connector. The one will go to first oxygenator. The second connector will go to the second oxygenator. And similarly, reverse Y. I'll come to that when I go for the circuit. Okay. Fine. Then you have how will you monitor the oxygenator functions is by delta pressures or a transmembrane pressures. So we measure P2 and P3. So P2 is pre-oxygenator and P3 is post-oxygenator. So again we measure these 2 pressures, and the difference between these 2 pressures is a delta pressure, that is tells you about the oxygenator capacity. So if the oxygen start getting clogged, your P2 will increase because it has to post more force to pass through. Your P3 will decrease because there is a drop in the pressure because it is passing through a resistant membrane. So your delta pressure will increase. Okay, that is, so that occurs only when there is a oxygenator is failing or oxygenator is getting clogged, you get a change in the delta pressure. Okay. Each and every oxygenator has got a different delta pressures. Again, what is more important, the trend of the delta pressures. For an example, if it is a quadrox oxygenator, it is the least resistance oxygenator. So the delta pressure in the quadrox oxygenator is only 25 to 50. But in Midos, your Eurosate, Paragon, all oxygenator has got a delta pressure of around 100. That's the normal delta pressure when you start with. While in case of Sorin, the delta pressure is around 150. So all different oxygenator has got different delta pressures to start with, and that depends on how resistant the oxygenator is. Okay. So what is more important is your trend. Okay. So if when you initiate ECMO, you know the delta pressure was say 25. And now you find that after 10-15 days, delta pressure from 25 has increased to 50. It means that oxygenator is getting clogged. Okay. So when the value goes about 2 times the basic delta pressure, it means the oxygen is getting clogged. So that trend is important, not the single value. Okay. Then you have different tubings, different size tubings, 3/8, half, 1/4 tubings. Dikha de tubings. So again, in adults usually we use 3/8 tubes. This is a 1/2 inch tube. This is 3/8 tube. So when you go to the stations, you will be able to see these tubes, and this is the 1/4 size tube. In adults usually we use 3/8 tubes. In pediatrics or neonates we use 1/4 size tube. Okay. And this is what the tube selection is. For pediatrics and neonates and pediatrics less than 20 kg, we use 1/4 size tube. In all adult persons, we use 3/8 tubes. You can use 1/2 inch tube for a venous drainage line. Then the resistance will be still low. So you can use that. Then you have heat exchanger. In most of the oxygenator, heat exchanger is inbuilt. So now whatever oxygenator we are getting, we have an inbuilt heat exchanger. This was the one where we used to do a Medtronic silicone oxygenator, that time you used to have a separate ECMO thumb for heat exchanger. So now you don't see ECMO thumb separately. It is inbuilt in the oxygenator. Okay. Again, this is the better bladder which we used to see when we used to use roller pump. So what the role of better bladder is? It is a collapsible bag. So it acts like an RA outside. So whatever the blood comes first to the better bladder and then it goes. So when the better bladder collapses, okay, the machine sense it is servo regulated. So machine sense it and then the machine speed decreases or it stops. So you don't get the too much of suction effect in the RA and the endothelium of the vessel does not get damaged. It is the servo regulator better bladder which used to control it. Okay. Then you have a different types of bridge. Traditional bridge, screw cage bridge or stopcock bridge. Now everybody is using is stopcock bridge usually nowadays. Okay. So I'll show you the bridge. मेरे को bridge दिखा दो. Okay. See, use of bridge is there's no use. In fact, it is used only when you want to separate the patient from the circuit. So when you want to separate both of them, yes, you require bridge. Okay. So this is the way we put a bridge. This is toward the patient. So we keep the bridge as close to as patient. Okay. So now when I clamp this, nothing is going to the patient. And when I open this bridge, the circuit, the blood is moving in the circuit and nothing goes to the patient. This is the bridge. Okay. And this is usually a stopcock bridge. So we put a three-way stopcock here. So we can always keep this bridge closed. So whenever we don't want to use this bridge, we keep this bridge as a close. And when you want to open it, you can use it. Okay. Whenever you want to separate the patient from the circuit. The advantage of this bridge is, as I told you, one, in case of trial of VA ECMO. So when you want to do a trial of VA ECMO, you can use this. Second advantage, if you can see air, you can immediately take the air in the bridge and make the circuit starts, because then bridge is, you are separated the bridge. So you can stop the bridge and you can take the air in the bridge. Okay. And the third advantage of this bridge is, suppose suddenly your stops and you don't know where the clot is, whether it's in the cannula or in the oxygenator or something, you can separate the patient and open the bridge. If the circuit is moving well, it means something wrong with the cannula. If circuit is not moving, it means something wrong with the pump or oxygenator. So that is where it helps. Okay. So this is the stopcock bridge which I shown to you. Okay, we put this stopcock like this. This was a screw bridge which people used to use it, but now nobody uses this. Okay. The next is cannula. Cannula is the airway which when you are going to go, you are going to discuss on this on stations. As I told you, the cannula is most important. Each company gives their directions. Okay. So when you want to select the cannula, how will you select it? Depends on how much the flow you require. Okay. In venous cannula, they have different size, and which you can see the graph. It will tell you which size of the cannula will give how much flow. Okay. So select the cannulas that will provide you full flow at the pressure loss of 100 mm of Hg for a return cannula and 20 mm of Hg for a venous or drainage cannula. So depending upon that, you can select the size of this. Okay. This is, I just made it simplified from graph to the numbers, so that you know with what weight of the patient, how much flow will require and what size of cannula you use. In adult, usually you use 25, 27 or 29 French for a drainage and 19 or 21 for a return cannula. Okay. Similarly, you have double lumen cannula for pediatrics and adults. Okay. I'll show you how to put double lumen cannula in this. Again, they have a what size of cannula required with what weight. You can decide and how much flow it will able to give from the venous side as well as on the return side. Okay. Then you have a circuit. सर्किट ले ले, वो प्राइम करने वाला है, सर्किट ले लेना, प्राइम करके दिखाना है. प्राइमिंग तो करो भी, किसमें करेंगे प्राइमिंग? हाँ ठीक है, पकड़िए. So this is the circuit. If you see, this is the blue line, which is a drainage line. Okay, this will get connected to the patient drainage cannula. Okay, you can see two connectors here. The basically reason for two connector is first it helps you in priming. So when you want to do a rapid prime, you can clamp. They will show you. They will to clamp here. The crystalloid will go from here. It will go pass through this and will come out from here. So you can de-air it completely. So that is one role. Second, you can measure with the help of this. You can measure pre-pump pressures, and you can use this line for CRRT or RRT connections also. Okay. So there you can see two connectors before the pump. This is the pump. Post pump connected to the oxygenator. So this is connected to oxygen in or the blood in. It gets connected from pump to the oxygenator. This side is negative pressure. Remember, before the pump everything is negative pressure. So if you open up any of this line, it is going to suck the air because it is as a vacuum. So this is a negative pressure line, and if by chance, by mistake, if this three-way opens, it will suck lot of air. So you have to be very mindful about line which is pre-pump, and that's why we don't recommend use these lines for any blood collection or any connection for the renal replacement also. The reason is because if by mistake someone's opened it up, it can suck air. If those are experienced people, you don't have problem. But those staff is not experienced, then there will be a problem on this side. Then from here it goes to the oxygenator. From oxygenator it comes out, okay, and it goes to the patient. This is the one where you measure the P2 pre-oxygenator. This is the one where you measure P3 post-oxygenator pressures. Okay, and then it goes to the patients. Okay, you can flow sensor. Now most of the time you have a flow sensor which is detachable. So you can connect it. Usually we connect it to the return line, and there is one direction which is given on the flow sensors. You can see the directions. Okay. So you have to connect the flow sensor in that direction. Otherwise it will measure negative pressures. And the moment it measures negative pressures, pump stops. So you have to be mindful about this. So there is a direction given. So you have to connect it to the same direction. Okay. Fine. So that is about the circuit. Okay. Y wala circuit dikha, hybrid circuit. Okay. Ideally, every circuit should have their own customized circuit. Circuit length has to be adjusted depending upon your need. If the patient is, you think patient requires transport, probably you require a bigger tube length. If you don't require transport, you can get a small tube length. As the length of the tube increases, the resistance is going to increase, the priming volume is going to increase, the surge reaction is going to increase. So you have to be mindful about that. Okay. So, okay, fine. So when you are preparing the circuit by your own, you have to see the size of the tube what you are going to use, the size of oxygenator which you are going to use, the pump which you are going to use. That is all thing is important. And how will you use oxygenator size? Depending upon how much total flow you will require, how much time do you require to use oxygenator. Suppose you require to use oxygenator for less than 4 to 6 hours. Your polypropylene oxygenator is good enough. You don't require to go because the cost of polypropylene is 18,000 as compared to your 1 lakh of your PMP oxygenator. Okay, so fine. So this is how the circuit diagram is. You remember this diagram because you have to when you go to station you have to make your own circuit. Okay, so this is important. You should know how to make your circuit. Okay, fine. Now coming to something a modified circuit. Okay. Now what is modified circuit? In case of hybrid ECMO, you might require VVV. So you are drainage. We are draining from the 2 vein and returning in the 1. That is VV dash V ECMO. That is variants of ECMO. And then you have hybrid ECMO VAV. So you are draining from 1 vein and returning back to the 2. So return have Y connector. So now how to make this tube connection? And then you have dual oxygenator. What I am showing is a dual oxygenator. So this part is remains the same. This is a drainage line. It remains same. From here to the pump. From the pump, see, you have to put a Y connector like this. So it will get divided in two parts. One will go to the first oxygenator. The second line will go to the second oxygenator. So it has to be parallel. Then from here again it comes, when it comes out of the oxygenator, both of them unite here. It's a reverse Y. So one blood is coming from this oxygenator, one blood is coming from this oxygenator. Both get united here and then it goes to the patient. This is a dual oxygenator connector and you require double Y. Here one Y, pre-oxygenator, post-oxygenator, another Y. Similarly, suppose you want to do a hybrid ECMO, you want to have two drainage. So when you want to have two drainage, here you can put one Y connector. So one will be draining from this line, one will be coming from that line, and both will go to the pump. So you can put a Y connector in the drainage line if you want to do a VV-V ECMO, or you want to do a VA-V ECMO. This is the return line. Okay. So it is coming from the pump. This is a return line. Then you divide into two. One will go to the vein and one will go to the artery. But remember, the one which goes to the vein, you have to partially clamp it because in the vein the resistance is less. So by default, most of the blood will go to the vein. So to prevent that, you have to partially clamp the vein. Okay. Fine. So I think this I discussed. Dual oxygenator also I discussed. Okay. Then you have coated circuits and uncoated circuits. Okay. Most of the circuits are heparin coated circuits. Okay. There is some advantage, but it's not that is going to make a huge difference. If you have heparin coated circuit, albumin coated circuits, the chance of surge reactions are less. Okay. And your heparin environment also can decrease to some extent. Okay. Now what we are going to discuss is circuit priming. Okay. In circuit priming, there are two things you should remember. How much is the volume of the circuit? As I told you, in adults around 700 to 800 ml, and pediatrics around 300 to 350 ml. Okay. And what is the solution which you are going to use? Okay. So priming volume depends on the volume of the pump, which pump you are using. Suppose you are using a Medtronic pump, the priming volume is 80 plus the oxygenator plus the tubing. Okay. If you are using a Meadows pump, priming volume is 15 ml plus the oxygenator and plus the, so you can calculate how much is the priming volume is. Okay. Now when you are priming the circuit, you have to prime the circuit in two stages. One is the priming with the crystalloid, that is just to de-air. And suppose patient hemoglobin is low or you want to add something else, additives, then it is first is crystalloid priming followed by additive primings. So priming can be done in two stages. Okay. Now the basic principle of priming is, always remember, air moves up. Okay. So that is the basic principle. So when you do a priming, they will show you how to do it. Okay. First step, as I told you, is you have to clamp this line. Okay. Yes. So you are now separating these two circuits, isn't it? From here, we'll connect. Okay. We connect the prime set here. We connect the rapid prime set here. Okay. Now see, first you have to always de-air the pump. And this de-airing the pump will be gravity guided. So you have to keep this in this position so that there is no air. Air always moves up, so air is replaced by the crystalloids. And then you have to turn it like this, so all the air goes up and gets replaced by the crystalloids. Then it will go here in the oxygenator. You have to open the oxygenator pigtails here so that air comes out and it gets filled up. From here, the return line will fill up and then blood will fill up. Okay. So this entire tube will get filled up and then it comes back and goes to this. Okay. This is the U which we have to do. So they will show you how to do it. Only basic principle you have to remember is you have to the air always moves upward. Okay. हाँ तब तो so can you see यहाँ पे फोकस करो सूरज रुक रुक आ रहा है पे आने दे और थोड़ा जूम कर यहाँ पे पंप पे yes can you see this moving water fluid is moving can you see in the oxygenator fluid is moving खोल the clamp so this will cause de-airing will move Can you see this? This is the air which is getting moved out. Okay. Yeah, fine. So the fluid coming from here. So you can stop this now. Okay. You can put it in the, once you have air primed the pump and oxygenator priming is started, you can put this pump in the external motor drive. नीचे से पूछा क्या? गिल्ला है pump. Remember, you have to always wipe the pump before you put it on the external motor drive. Okay. And then you just switch on this. इसमें आ रहा है. अब तो चला जाएगा ना. चला जाएगा. You see this air which is coming now, this air is getting replaced with the fluid. Okay. So this is air is getting removed. Okay. So this is how you are going to do priming. There is a station on priming, so you will be doing by hands-on on priming. Okay. So I think that's it about my first talk. Slides दिखा दे. Yeah. So for adult patients, your crystalloid priming is fine, but if the hemoglobin is less than 10 or 11 also, I usually prefer blood priming because the hemodilution effect will be less, especially if the patient is hemodynamically unstable. It is always preferred to do blood priming rather than just doing a crystalloid priming. In pediatrics and neonates, you have to go by more of a physiological composition. So you have to do blood priming, FAP priming, yes, you have to do in case of pediatrics and that. Obviously, in case of ECPI, we just do a crystalloid priming, we don't do anything else than that. Okay. When you are using blood flow priming, and so if you want to give calcium to neutralize the calcium gluconate to neutralize the citrate, then you have to put heparin also in the circuit, or otherwise just keep it and running, and it will get neutralized later on. Okay, once it goes to the patient. Okay. If you are using blood priming, always if fresh blood has to be used, because if you are using a low, not the fresh blood, then it has a high acidosis and high potassium level, so that can create problem. In case of blood prime, you have to always check the ABG and electrolyte.